just keep this tape rolling because
It's
this
recording.
this is what Inside the Doctor's Lounge is all about. And I'll do a quick intro. I'm your host, Dr. Desmond Bell. The host of Inside the Doctor's Lounge with my friends and colleagues R Cubed. That's Rhonda Crow, the CEO, MD Coaches, Randy Cook, and Rick Zollinger. So we were gonna just talk about some lighter things today, and obviously we got a little sidetracked, which is great because that's what it's all about. We've talked about snakes in our kitchens and our Christmas trees. You know, that was a good place to start, Rick, because we were going to talk about the holidays and, you know, some of our experiences as physicians during the holiday season. So I'll kind of bring that discussion back and kind of start from there and then just let this go wherever it's going. And for people who are wondering why I'm wearing this, that was the intent today. But so, you know, we've all, you know, had long careers in medicine and we've all had to work throughout the holidays. And I just wanted to kind of get your thoughts on how did you deal with it? What were some of your early, you know, concerns when you were first, you know, had to be, you know, working those hours? You felt like everybody else was out having a great time and you're there either at the hospital or having to man your practice. So, you know, Rick, I know you had a real, I think a really good way of handling it and dealing with some of the patient aspect of it too. So.
Well, the patient aspect, we all had, you know, everybody had to have their own game. And at the time, when I remember the most was when your family was young, the hardest one for me was of the holidays to cover, the hardest one for me to cover, believe it or not, wasn't Christmas. Because on Christmas, it was dead. So I could be with the family from, you know, we were done with the tree by 6:42. So I could be with the family and then still going to make rounds at 9 o'clock. And, you know, things didn't pick up in the hospitals till afternoon. But Thanksgiving was tough for me because you were on for 4 days. So Wednesday afternoon, the world left, you know.
Yes.
You felt the whole world just died because you couldn't get, if I got in trouble, I couldn't call Randy. He wasn't there.
Right. Busiest travel day of the year.
He's gone. So you were on your own until that Monday at 7 a.m. And so I always thought Thanksgiving was a very tough one to cover from a personal standpoint. Christmas, New Year's was, you know, like Randy said, New Year's just crazy people anyway. But, you know, my story from New Year's, I remember the people always, well, no, I won't even say that one. I better not go to that one.
You know, one of the things that I always found was that the biggest struggles that I had with the holidays were the patients, if they were in the hospital, who wanted to go home.
Yeah.
That was their goal. You know, they could have been deathly ill 2 days prior and all they're doing is pushing to go home, whether it was Christmas, Thanksgiving, Easter. Those are the three big ones. And you know, that certainly added some of the stress. It wasn't the fact that I had to be there. I mean, I never really minded because you work around it. It didn't particularly bother me. Like you said, the hospitals were pretty quiet in general over the holidays, but it was everything leading up to it and trying to keep those patients mentally in a good place. Obviously, the really, really sick ones, they're kind of out of it, or they don't care they don't know what day it is. But when you got those ones who are kind of on the borderline and they want to get out of there, you know, I'd always have to have this discussion. I kind of narrowed it down to, you know, look, my goal is to get you well so you don't have to come back. You know, we want to get you home and you'll have other holidays, you know, to celebrate. But right now, this is, you know, it's going to be okay. But you'd have to kind of walk them off the ledge a little bit. You guys ever experienced similar stuff? I'm sure you did.
Oh, absolutely. From a nursing perspective, it was always a busy time because of that very reason right there. Everybody wanted to go. So the discharge orders were just, you know, coming in like crazy. And then if you were actually working on the holiday for those souls that had to stay, they didn't get their wish, if you will. It was making sure that you got the things you had to do, the to-do list done so that you could spend extra time with them, just talking, just being with, We've interviewed on Randy's podcast a lovely physician, Dr. Dale Waxman. He gave us one of his prescriptions for success was don't just do something, stand there. And I think that's a very profound statement, especially in this context. And it's something that I learned the value being a young nurse at the bedside during these times. It was extremely important to not be doing something to them or around them or about them. It was more so they wanted to be with family and they couldn't be with family. So now you're the surrogate family. So sit still, be with them. If they want to play Uno for a while, okay, get your med pass done so you can sit down and play a hand of Uno with them for a little bit. That was the lesson that I learned during the holidays, especially during Thanksgiving. That was a big one, Rick.
And I remember some of the nicest people when you had to do that were the support staff, at least where I worked. So the cleaning lady would come in. She might hand out cards, or I mean, we had it was a Catholic hospital, and so it was a little different, maybe like Mount Carmel in Columbus or something. Yeah. At that time, it was the sisters would come around and stuff. And I was Presbyterian, but I loved the sisters to death because they were wonderful people. But all those people, those you're right. I think people, you were surrogate, and the nurses were obviously, as we all know, angels on earth. So yeah, those are.
I think Brandy touched on something that's important just for even for everyday life. Sometimes you feel like you always have to be doing something, but great advice I heard along the way is just be there. And again, it speaks to that whole mantra of you can't undo the past, you can't control the future, so you have to be in the moment, and that speaks to that too. And it's also about making the most of that moment too. So like you said, you just there you are, the two of you, your worlds kind of intersected at that moment, and you're just making the most of it. And that's what we do. That we're social creatures, and we have to be there for each other.
Well, being there is also therapeutic if you're truly in the moment.
Absolutely.
And you're listening and you're approaching with an open heart. It's very therapeutic, and we shouldn't slight that at all. We actually need to give it as much importance as it is having a clinical skill to apply.
I'll offer a bit of a different attitude that in some ways it caught me by surprise. I have to say I never really had the feeling that I was suffering because I had to be on call during the holidays. My hero when I was a kid was a small town doctor who happened to be a surgeon as well, and I remember that he was there every time somebody needed help, and I just figured that that's the way it is. So when I became the surgeon myself, I kind of went into it with that attitude, and this is not some terrible thing that I have to do. I'm honored to be there. But the thing, what I was trying to get to before I ran on at the mouth was I became very aware of the emotional stress that happens to other people during the holiday season, particularly those who were not as fortunate as I. There were more crimes of violence, and being a general surgeon, we were the traumatologists of the day. I operated on so many gunshot wounds, so many stab wounds, so many acts of violence, and it gave me an opportunity to understand that not only was I not suffering because I had to be there on the holidays, but my life was so much better than so many people, and it gave me a moment of gratefulness.
Yeah, I when you say that, the one fear I have for this holiday season is I sat here and said I wasn't as excited as before, is the the fear of the depression that you always talk about and the possibility of increased suicide rate. I just feel, and throw in the election and just the world in general, and I worry about, like I said, especially the youth.
Well, even now, up to this point in 2020, the numbers of suicides are up, and
Right.
those kinds of things. So yeah, this is set up to be a rough holiday season, I think.
Yeah.
Hey, somebody say something jolly, please.
Well,
What have I done?
The best holiday where nothing ever happened was Marsh Tuesday in New Orleans. If you were on call on Mardi Gras when I was at the Oxford Clinic, there wasn't squat happen. and the attendings would say, "Don't call me. I ain't coming. Don't."
That was sounds like it was a lot like Masters Week at Augusta.
Yeah. There you go.
Yeah.
I'm not available. Won't be available. And don't call me on Sunday afternoon because I ain't coming. Yeah.
We're not even going to talk about Mardi Gras right now.
That's out of the loop. So people don't realize it is a religious holiday.
That's right. That is correct.
I love it.
That's right. Fax Tuesday.
Now this is bad. I'm sorry, especially as a Presbyterian. But the first time I was in New Orleans, and on Wednesday morning when everybody came in, I said, because we didn't do that in our church, I guess. I didn't go on Ash Wednesday.
Not any Presbyterian I've known.
They all came in with a black forehead. I'm going, and you want to walk up. And then as the day went on, I go, there are a lot of people with black forehead.
Look, I was raised Catholic, and I just always would wonder, it's like, isn't this kind of like the height of hypocrisy? Because, they're telling you to always try and lead a certain kind of life. But the whole idea of Fat Tuesday is to do all the bad things you can possibly do before you have to give those things up again for the next 40 days. And it is crazy.
Yeah.
So, back to kind of like the traditional holidays right now. And, it's certainly a challenging time. And but regardless of the challenging time, did you guys, and I'm not talking about the negativity of the holidays, but did you ever have that feeling in your mind when you were going through it? It's like, man, these holidays are such a pain in the rear, because you would have to almost do double work just in anticipation and preparation for them. And then afterwards too. And, even patients' health, if you were working in an outpatient clinic like wound care, you'd hold your breath sometimes because there was a certain interruption in care.
Right.
That would occur. And so that would add to me, that was to me the most stressful part of the holidays, just from a clinician standpoint.
I'll second that one. That's always been a great aggravation for me, is that people seem to, some people anyway, take the attitude that, we could all clock out or something, and it upsets the flow. It just, I found that to be the most stressful part of the whole thing. The usual network of support and people that you could usually depend on just kind of disappeared, or at least became intermittent during holiday times.
Yeah, there were definitely challenges. I mean, like Randy, what you're describing, I never minded working the holidays. I mean, that because in medicine we don't work by the clock. We never do. We don't work. Right. And I would tell my patients, I don't work by the clock. I don't work by the calendar. We do what we have to do. That's what we are here for. That's what we sign up for. And that's kind of the essence. We're just wired differently, I guess. So it never bothered me. It was just that interruption of that rhythm and the flow that I found to be the most challenging part of it.
I told you that story my father said about that when I was a young surgeon. I complained about something like that. He said, "What war did you fight in?" So because his point always was, I didn't even start my life till I was in my 40s, and you're 30 whatever, 7 or 8, and you're bitching already. So get a life. And I that one would stick. As soon as I would get in that kind of mood, you'd hear that voice back there.
Yeah.
That's right. That's right.
Your
It's
dad didn't.
it's not a 9-to-5 job. It's not a 5-day-a-week career. We all know that.
Your dad and my dad had seen a completely different world.
Yeah.
The Depression, World War II, Korea.
Yeah. The atomic bomb.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
That changed our lives.
I mean, there's stuff they witnessed that we didn't, Pearl Harbor, whatever.
Yeah, all we had to do was practice crawling under our desk.
I was going to say, did you do the duck and cover drills? Like your desk was going to save you.
That would have done you a lot of good. That would probably save you right like it did Wile E. Coyote.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, Wile E. Coyote.
It's man, you just made me think of something. This is so off the subject, but somebody sent me a video this morning it was a little experiment. They gave these two 17-year-old boys an old rotary phone, and they asked them to dial a number.
Seen that.
They gave them 4 minutes to do it, and these kids were so perplexed. They didn't have the slightest.
Had never got it, right?
No, they never got it. They got close, but they did things backwards, or they did. Like, those are the kind of things that start making you feel like, wow.
I saw that and I thought, I could dial the phone when I was 3 years old, and I guess it's because I'd seen the adults doing it.
Right.
But these people have never seen a rotary dial phone.
My grandfather got a bill back in the day. He ended up having to put a lock on the phone because I guess as a little guy, I must have hopped on there and started dialing. And they got the phone bill from all these long distance calls. Who the hell called down there?
Well, I remember my grandmother's from the 50s was in Millersport down in Fairfield County outside Columbus. You'd go down there and she had one phone. You pick it up and you go, Mabel, get Des on the phone, will you?
Yeah,
I had that.
You didn't dial squat. It was a real phone, but you picked it up and just said Mabel.
That's right. There were party lines, and you had the
party lines.
Yeah,
that's my first memory of the telephone.
Yeah. Who is that talking in the background? Oh, that's Josina.
We've come a long way.
Yeah, we've come a long way. That's pretty good.
It's sometimes.
I don't know. We might have backed up.
Well, yeah, because now we don't talk on these. We just take pictures with them.
I know. Again, that's the double-edged sword right there. There's so many great things about having that information and that capability right at your disposal. But man,
in your house, do you still have? We've lived in this house 30-some years. We just had our phone jacks in the kitchen drywalled. Where we used to hang a picture on them.
Yeah, just in case.
we finally had to have something painted, so we had to drywall them, and I thought, God, that's just crazy funny. Don't need them anymore.
No, I know. It's true that even that first break of people going from landlines to going completely independent with your cell phones, it was like, nah, I don't know. And then there were excuses to keep your landline, and like everything else, eventually you just kind of, all right, I guess we really don't need that.
I still have one.
Yeah,
we still got one in my house and in my office.
Yeah.
So
yeah, we have it, and then we got that Bondage thing where you pay $10 a decade or something. And the reason is because our water bill, electric bill, and stuff are identified with that old number, and she didn't want to change it, so we just leave it. We don't use that phone at all. It's just in
our particular locality, in order to get internet service, it comes from the telephone company, and it costs you no more to plug a landline into.
That's
it.
right. I had same thing here, and I have a phone on my desk too, but I never use it. There's no need for it. So
yeah, well, I have a fax machine because there's still people who like to have faxes, like the VA. I've been helping
Yeah.
my dad with some VA papers.
Oh,
so,
that's a perfect spot for it.
yeah. Yeah.
That's like
so,
the fax. It's like that TV commercial. What is that machine over there? Oh, that's a fax printer.
uh-huh.
or a
All the
machine.
things.
Yeah. So you know how you go to the workplace. If you've got one at the house, you can go get a new one that's got all the bells and whistles for $100.
Yep.
And we had one at the wound care center when I left that was 10 years old, and they would call the guy in from, the custodial guy would come over and repair the darn thing for a decade. I said,
Yep.
I will give you $100 to go buy.
Just go get a new one.
And so one day the nurses, I was just about, it was on a counter, and I said, I can just go over here and I can just it'll fall on the ground and we'll just go, damn, it broke. And I was just about to do it. The nurses called me off on it. They said, no, you'll get in trouble. Don't do that.
Well, this conversation in some ways is making me feel a little bit old, but not really, because all these things have happened at a lightning pace too.
Oh, yeah.
They sure did.
It's like life before, I don't know, maybe the year 2000 seemed to go a little bit slower, maybe a lot slower. But now it's just like every day, it just seems like it's, and I think this is part of the stress people are feeling too. It's like just, you got to hold on and, so.
I was going to say about that, think of the textbooks. In the 90s, you still had Harrison or whatever the Gray's. The only one that hadn't changed ever is Gray's Anatomy. But every other textbook would come out every 5 years, whatever it was.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And I would like to know what the kids do now, because they probably don't even have textbooks. I mean, and the information changes so quickly.
Yes.
What do they do? Everything's accessible through this.
Yeah.
Well, there was, and I can't even remember the details of it, but there was a publication that you could get both in print and online, and I'm pretty sure it was put out by the American College of Surgeons, and it was the online version, of course, was updated, I think, twice a year or something like that, and now we have the name of it escapes me now. Up to Date is an online based compendium of all the medical information there is, and they update that thing daily.
Because it's so easy to do it now.
Yeah.
It's all about information.
Yep.
Yeah, information. Well, I think you're right, Des. That's just, there's almost TMI, and so how do you sort through on your day-to-day lives? I don't know. I mean, yeah.
I just, me personally, sometimes I have to take a step backwards or just take a time out, like with social media as an example. We're getting bombarded with so much stuff, so much information each day. And after a while, it's like, I'm one of those people that I always enjoyed a little quiet time, sit quietly, whether it's read a book or just, kind of just mentally organize your day. And I find when I lose track of that, then I become more anxious, even though I'm not an anxious person by nature, but I start to feel a little, I feel that. So I just take a step back. But it's so easy to get sucked into that vortex that it's, unless you know how to put the brakes on. I think that's where we have an advantage, because we all had life before all this technology. And, a lot of the kids coming up, they haven't experienced it. This is all they know. And so their brains, I think, are firing in a whole different way than ours do. I don't know if that's accurate or not.
That picture you posted, Rhonda, of walking your dog in the park?
Yeah.
And I have a friend in Michigan, Elizabeth and I have a friend named Annie, who's about 72 or something, but Annie's always raised dogs, raised horses and stuff. And that's how she deals with this. She's just oblivious to it. She lives her goes out to the lake where you are, Randy, and just throws the rod in the water. I mean, she basically goes back and she messes with her dogs. And Elizabeth says she just doesn't go with any of this because she's going to live her life doing those things, and just all that stuff she forgets about. and she's much happier for it. So
She's got a certain self-awareness though, too. I
Mhm.
mean, she knows what makes her happy, what gives her joy. And
Right.
she doesn't need anything else really from the sound of it.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
fortunate. I feel the same way in many aspects. Like, okay, I don't, I know what makes me happy, so I'm good.
And
Doesn't,
I think there might actually be some scientific data to support the actual physiologic advantage to doing things like that, particularly
Mhm.
things that involve physical activity. I remember when I talked to David Sadger on Prescription for Success and his Walk for a Doc program, and the dramatic improvement that their patients saw in blood pressure and cholesterol levels and things of that nature. And all they were doing was going and taking a walk on Saturday morning. And I think there is much more to it than just the cardiovascular endothelium. I think the brain gets a boost as well.
Mhm.
oh,
Well, you're looking
absolutely.
forward to it too. I mean, that's
You bet.
something, once you become part of a group like that, then you've got the anticipation of joining friends, you've got the
Mhm.
socialization. So there's, I'm sure, some endorphins in there that are associated with that. So,
And for at least an hour or so, you don't give any thought to the things that are
Right.
weighing on your soul. And you
It's,
gotta have a break, folks.
yeah.
I agree, Randy. When I was going through a lot of personal stuff a few years ago, I used to just by myself walk the beach,
Mhm.
and it turned out at the end, after a while, it turned out to be pretty much 5 mile walks.
Hmm.
And my brain would still be going 100 miles an hour for the first part of that walk. But by the end of it,
Mhm.
turn around, just say my prayers, whatever I would do, and just let it all go. And then I would just start walking back and just felt like a new person
Mhm.
and just ready to go. And also you commune with nature a little bit too.
Yeah.
And but we all need that.
Mhm.
I really believe that anyway.
Well,
Your
social
brain
media is a
definitely needs a break.
tool. It's a tool. And, where you said it best, I think, where it becomes this vortex that you get sucked into. You have to take control over it and use it as a tool, not let it
Yeah,
control your life.
it is a tool. That's exactly just like anything else.
Mhm.
A calculator, a telephone, social media. It's a way to. It's a means to an end. Whether it's to connect with somebody to get some information, but then you have to know how to put limits on it too.
Mhm. Without
And that's
question.
that's the challenge because it's really it's sneaky how
The funny
it
thing
draws
is,
you in.
I think that if we treated social media like a social event, it wouldn't have the effect on us that it seems to
What do you mean
have.
by that, Rena? Like if you had
Well,
like there
if
was
you
only a certain
were,
time you could
yeah,
do it.
well, if you attend a social event, you expect to talk to people, interact with people, enjoy the conversation. Yeah, you're kind of getting away from your everyday life. And what we've done with social media to this point is turned it into a place to rant and carry on and let go of your rage.
Yeah,
That
and
can't be
isn't
good,
that
can it?
something? When we were all growing up too, I remember one lesson I learned along the way, or a bit of advice was when you go to a social gathering or a party, there's certain topics you don't
Yeah.
discuss because it would be,
Exactly.
which was usually religion, sex, and politics.
Right.
Exactly.
Right.
Keep them out of it, and everybody will get along just fine. Well, like to your point, Randy, what happens on social media? It's the place where all those things are constantly spewed
Unleashed.
out.
Right. That's exactly right.
That's all we talk about.
I was going to say, those are the three topics.
We, Rhonda,
I'm talking about the bigger
Rhonda,
collective.
of course you are.
It was considered bad manners or poor taste or whatever. You can talk about things privately or you could formulate your own opinions, but in that kind of gathering, boy, that was a recipe for for a brawl, I guess.
In a weird
That's
way, I
that's
kind
what
of
we
think it's
see.
like a stress release for people, that it's safe, if you will, to take this horrible thing that's in your head and just fling it out into the internet, and then I walk away from it. but it's not. You
No.
know, getting back to something I've heard Randy talk about is, you know, our empathy abilities, and part of empathy is understanding the effect of your behavior on others, and that includes that behavior. So
Yes.
you may have just purged and gotten it out of you, and that's great, but the effect that you left for other people, it had ripples. So
Agree.
I think that's
Agree.
part of what I watch, and I
It
see what
doesn't
goes
go
on with
away
social
either.
media. No.
It's not resolved at that point. Now you've just started, you've opened up the Pandora's box, and here you go. It can, you never know how it might come back to haunt you.
Oh.
You've got
I
to be
think I
so
might have just
careful.
found the subject for my next blog. Write that down.
There was a thing I read yesterday
Yes.
where thinking when I was talking about that hope thing, and what it was how you deal. It goes along with coaching.
Mhm.
To think about this and how you would respond to a client. But it said, when you show up to a meeting late and you would go, well, I'm sorry I'm late. I'm sorry I'm late. And isn't this awful? Whatever. And you have all these negative vibes. And it said, why don't you take in your mind and consciously say, well, thank you for waiting for me.
Thank you for waiting.
Right. Yeah.
And then the whole thing is a positive slant. It's like my son would,
Appreciation.
yes, and the classic one of this is in caddying in golf. Really good caddy doesn't say, don't, you know, there's water over there. It's always a positive thought.
Right.
Hit it down the left side.
Right. Because
There's water
you're
on
putting
the
that negative thought in
I want you
somebody's
to hit
head.
it right down the left side towards that tree.
Yep.
And I remember going to my son and said, now don't, and he said, shut up. No don'ts, and there's no don'ts in anything here.
That's right.
And so everything is this positive attitude for professional athletes. And I thought, man, you know, but that was a good one. Thank you for waiting. Not, I'm
I
sorry.
like that. So, you know, Rick, you brought the topic up earlier. So when you hear the word hope, how do you respond? What do you think of? What's the first thing that pops in your head when you hear the word hope?
From my physician days, don't take it away. Never.
Okay. Rhonda,
never,
how about you?
Never not have it.
There's a tomorrow. There's a reason to get up.
Okay, Randy.
Yeah, along those same lines, always remember there is something beyond, and that's why we have hope.
Yeah, and when you brought it up earlier, Rick, the first thing that popped in my mind, there's always hope. There's always hope. You never give up. You know, like I said, Randy, there's always a reason to get up and keep plugging, and it's you know,
Scarlett
and
O'Hara, guys. There's always tomorrow.
There's always. The doctor's lounge.
That's right.
Where we can talk about these things.
So I think we've been
I like that.
a really fun discussion today, and you know, the idea was we were going to talk about the holidays, but so I want to kind of, I think it's time to wrap things up a little bit, because Rhonda's going to have a field day trying to edit through all stuff. But with these holidays that are approaching, tell me what you all wish for this holiday season. So Dr. Z, I'll let you get started with this.
Oh, for me, it's safety and good health and family. Just enjoy what you got.
Randy?
Yeah, I think I'm pretty much in that same territory, and that is despite what a challenging several months that we've had since the onset of 2020. And I really hate to be so corny about it, but we really got to count our blessings, because most of us are blessed way beyond our deserving. And it's very, very important to remember just exactly what we have to be thankful for, and try to get the focus away from the aggravation.
Right.
How about you, Ron? Well stated, Randy.
Absolutely. I'll underscore what both Rick and Randy said, but I'm going to take it just a smidge further in that, let's look at the gift of what this pandemic year has brought to us, and not only appreciate the blessings that we have within our own family, but to look at how we can extend ourselves to those who may be struggling, and to extend some of our blessings to others, because there's more than what we usually hear about this time of year. There's a lot of people who are having a hard time. So to be a blessing to someone else.
And think
Yeah,
of these,
that's
think of
beautifully
these,
stated.
think of these 4 squares 12 months ago. We didn't have this relationship.
That's true. That's true.
You know, I hadn't thought about that. Seems
know
like
what?
we've been together for decades.
Rick, it is
I
a
know.
blessing. This is
But it-
absolutely a blessing.
Yeah, I mean,
For
it's something
sure.
With something we've all looked forward to, and it's fun. And
Very much so.
I guess I'll wrap it up to with my wish is that once, and we will get through all this stuff. My wish is that when it does happen, that we will all become closer because of having been through this miserable experience, that we'll appreciate even more all the good things that are to come. And when we do have experience those good things, that we'll have an extra appreciation for them, because it's true. I mean, the spring always follows the winter, and we will get through all this stuff. Kind of reminded me of, there were certain times going through school, it was just sheer misery. And every once in a while you run into one of your old classmates and maybe haven't seen them in 20 years or whatever, but because you went through that same crappy experience together, there's a certain bond.
Oh yeah.
It brings you
Oh, yeah.
closer. And you have a certain respect for that person too, because they also went through it. And hopefully we'll all kind of look back and we will, have an enhanced respect and caring for each other. So,
hope so.
well, it's been another phenomenal, really great time today. It always is.
Mhm.
But this was a fun one today, especially because this really, it was the embodiment of the concept of Inside the Doctor's Lounge. It's the place where we can have discussions on any number of topics. And I think this was really borne out today, but in a fun way, sometimes a serious way. But it's always interesting, it's always fascinating, and it's always honest as well as entertaining. So until the next time, I'd like to thank you all for being part of this. We hope you'll subscribe to Inside the Doctor's Lounge. Just hit that red button on your screen. Also be looking out for our new website. Rhonda, why don't you give the address so I don't screw it up?
It's insidethedoctorslounge.com. Very simple.
See, thank God you did that, because I would have surely messed that up. And also be sure to look for and listen to Randy's outstanding podcast, Prescription for Success. More weekly wisdom from Dr. Z and his Pickin' and Puttin' podcast too, which is a lot of fun. And until next time, I'm your host, Dr. Desmond Bell, for Rhonda Crow, Randy Cook, Rick Zollander. Remember, we see you, we believe in you, and we're here for you. Happy holidays.
Bye, y'all.
Just enjoying a little spiked eggnog. Welcome to the holiday edition of Inside the Doctor's Lounge. This is the very first holiday program we've ever done, because this has been our first year. And what a year it's been. Obviously, it's been off the charts, but you know what? We persevere. And today's episode is all about basically what happens inside a doctor's lounge. This is what we'd hoped would happen as we put these programs together. The conversations today between Rick Zollander, Randy Cook, Rhonda Crow, and me, your host, Dr. Desmond Bell, really cover the gamut. We cover topics that really range from funny to ridiculous to serious. That's what it's all about. You never know where the conversation's going to take us. So please stay safe, stay healthy, enjoy your holidays, and enjoy this latest episode of Inside the Doctor's Lounge.